I stood on the porch with my suitcase still in my hand. My childhood porch. The paint was chipped in the same spots I remembered. The wooden board still groaned under my shoes. But the door had a new lock. My key didn't fit. First I laughed. Out loud. Because what else do you do when the house you grew up in suddenly decides you don't belong? I tried again, turning the key harder. Nothing. I even pulled at the knob like maybe the universe would cut me a break if I looked desperate enough. That's when the door opened. Not because of me, because someone unlocked it from the inside. My father. Dad, I said, relief flooding through me. The lock doesn't work with my key. He didn't smile. Didn't even move aside. His hand stayed on the edge of the doorframe, like he was holding it in place. It's supposed to be that way. I blinked. What? His jaw tightened. Behind him I could see the hallway. The photos on the wall, the worn rug, the smell of old coffee drifting from the kitchen. Everything was exactly the same except me. This house is for family, he said flatly. And right now that means your brother. Not you. I felt the words land before I could even process them. A punch without fists. My brother. Always my brother. Dad, I just came back from college. I told you I was coming. I texted you. He shook his head, cutting me off. You made your choices. You walked away. Don't act surprised when doors close. I opened my mouth, then shut it again. My throat felt tight, my hands numb. Behind him a shadow appeared, my brother, leaning against the wall like he owned the place already. Smug. Silent. Watching. I wanted to scream. Instead I whispered, "This is my home." "No," my father said. "It was. Now it's his." And then he closed the door. Not slammed. Not shouted. Just closed. Quiet, final. I stood there on the porch, suitcase by my side, staring at the wood grain inches from my face. And that's when it hit me. My whole life had been preparing me for this moment. I just didn't want to believe it. Because in my family, love always came with locks. And I had finally run out of keys. I didn't walk away. Not at first. I just stood there on the porch like an idiot, hoping the door would open again. Hoping my dad would realize what he just said and pull me inside, laughing, calling it a bad joke. But the door stayed shut. I dragged my suitcase down the steps and sat on the curb, staring at the house that used to mean safety. My house. My brother's house now. Of course it was him. It had always been him. Jake, the golden child. The miracle baby, as Mom used to call him. 3 years younger than me, but somehow older in my parents' eyes. More deserving. More fragile. More important. When I was 10 and he was 7, I broke my wrist falling out of a tree. I cried, cradling my arm, waiting for comfort. But Dad was already shouting at me. "Why weren't you watching your brother?" Jake had been standing at the bottom, perfectly fine, holding the branch I'd dropped. Yet somehow my broken bones were my fault because I'd distracted him. That's how it always was. Jake failed a test? My fault, I hadn't tutored him enough. He stole from the corner store? My fault, I hadn't kept him out of trouble. He screamed, cried, threw tantrums? Guess who had to apologize? By the time we were teenagers, I had learned the family rule. Jake was the son. The rest of us just orbited. When I got accepted to college on a partial scholarship, I thought maybe things would change. I worked, I studied, I clawed my way out of that house to prove I could be more than their scapegoat. Dad shook my hand at graduation, said he was proud. But then Jake totaled a car 2 months later. And guess where the money came from to fix it? The account I'd been saving for books and housing. "You'll manage," Mom said when I protested. "Your brother needs us." That was the last time I argued. I packed, I left, I swore I wouldn't look back. And yet here I was, sitting outside the same house, suitcase beside me, like the years hadn't changed anything. The curtains shifted upstairs. Figure watching me. Probably Mom, maybe Jake. None of them came outside. None of them offered an explanation. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Short, sharp like a verdict. "You made your choices. Don't come back." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. And for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than sadness. It was anger. And anger, I realized, is sometimes the only thing strong enough to pull you off the curb. I didn't leave town. Not yet. Something in me refused to crawl away quietly, not this time. So I checked into a cheap motel off the highway, the kind that smelled faintly of bleach and cigarettes, and I sat there replaying the moment over and over. The door closing. My father's face. Jake's smirk. I should have been used to it. I should have shrugged, told myself it wasn't worth the fight. That's what I'd always done. But this time the anger wouldn't let me sleep. It burned hot and steady, keeping me wide awake in the lumpy bed. By morning I had made a decision. I was going back. Not to beg. Not to plead. To confront. When I walked up the porch again, the door was locked, of course. I pounded on it until my knuckles hurt. Dad. Mom. Open the door. No answer. I hit harder. You can't just shut me out like this. I'm your daughter. Finally, the door creaked open. But it wasn't my dad standing there this time. It was Jake. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, a lazy grin plastered on his face. Didn't you get the message? This isn't your place anymore. I clenched my fists. Move. I'm not here for you. Too bad, he said. Because Dad's done. He doesn't want you here. None of us do. None of us. That cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I tried to push past him, but he blocked the doorway like a bouncer at a club. Don't embarrass yourself, he said softly, almost kindly. You left. That was your choice. And now this house is mine. Dad signed it over last month. The words knocked the air out of me. What are you talking about? He smirked wider. The deed. It's in my name now. You don't belong here anymore. Legally. I froze. Signed it over? To him? Without telling me? Jake leaned in close, lowering his voice until I could feel his breath on my cheek. Go back to your little motel, sis. Or better yet, leave town. Because if you think you're getting anything out of this family, you're delusional. Something in me cracked. All the years of swallowing blame, of letting him take everything while I smiled and stayed quiet, gone. I stepped back, not because I was retreating but because I finally understood. This wasn't just about a house. This was about erasing me. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I left the porch before I did something I couldn't take back. Jake's smug face was burned into my vision, but his words, those were worse. The deed is in my name now. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My chest hurt, but not from sadness. From fury. Because if it was true, if my father had actually signed the house over to Jake, that wasn't just rejection. That was erasure. I drove straight to the county records office. The clerk barely looked up when I asked to see property transfers under my father's name. She typed, chewed her gum, then pushed a printout across the counter. There it was. Clear as day. My father's signature. The house transferred to Jake Carter, dated just 3 weeks ago. No mention of me. No explanation. Just a clean handoff like I had never existed. I stared at the paper until the letters blurred. The clerk gave me a sympathetic look. Like she knew this wasn't about real estate at all. I walked out with a copy in my hand and fire in my chest. That night, back in the motel, I spread the papers out on the bed. My phone buzzed again, text from Mom this time. You need to respect your father's decision. Don't make this harder than it is. Jake deserves stability. I laughed bitterly. Stability. That was their word for spoiling him rotten while I scraped by. Stability was why I worked double shifts in college while Jake crashed cars and got bailed out. Stability was why my father rewrote the family tree with me cut out of it. But then something clicked. Because if Jake had the house now, it meant my father trusted him with everything. The bills. The debts. The taxes. All the responsibilities Jake had never once handled in his life. And I knew exactly how bad he was with money. An idea began to form, dark, sharp, and dangerous. For once, the family's favoritism might come back to bite them. I picked up my phone and called an old friend from high school. Someone who owed me a favor. Someone who worked in finance now. When she picked up, I didn't waste time. I need to know how deep Jake is in debt, I said. There was silence, then a low whistle. What are you planning? I looked at the deed in front of me, Jake's name stamped across what used to be mine. I'm planning, I said slowly, to make sure this house destroys him before it destroys me. The call paid off faster than I expected. By the next evening, my friend texted me 3 words that made my pulse race. He's drowning already. Apparently, Jake's credit was a wasteland. Maxed out cards. Missed car payments. A payday loan he hadn't touched in months. My golden boy brother, the one my parents handed everything to, was one step from financial collapse. And now the house was legally his problem. I almost smiled. Almost. I didn't tell anyone what I knew. Not yet. I just sat with it, letting the weight of it settle inside me. Because for the first time I wasn't powerless. 2 days later, I got my confirmation in the most delicious way possible. I was parked across the street from the house when I saw it. Jake stomping down the driveway, phone glued to his ear, yelling. I couldn't hear every word, but phrases drifted across the yard. I said I'll pay next month. No, I don't care about late fees. You can't take the car, it's mine. He kicked the mailbox so hard it rattled. Then he went back inside, slamming the door behind him. I sat there in my car, heart pounding. He was unraveling already. The next morning, Mom called me. For the first time since the lock incident, she sounded soft, almost pleading. Honey, you know your brother's under a lot of pressure now. The house is, well, it's a big responsibility. Maybe you could help him? Just for a little while. I laughed so hard I startled her. Help him? After you threw me out? After Dad handed him everything? Her voice sharpened. Don't be dramatic. You chose to leave. Jake stayed. He deserves. Deserves what? I snapped. To drown in his own debt? To ruin the house the way he ruins everything else? Silence. Just her breathing, shaky and thin. That's when I realized something. They weren't worried about Jake's future. They were worried about theirs. Because for once Jake's chaos was threatening the thing they cared about most. The family home. Their shrine. Their legacy. And I was the only one who knew just how bad it really was. I could feel the power shifting. For once it was in my hands. When Mom finally whispered, Please just talk to your father, I smiled coldly. No, I said. He made his choice. And now I'm going to make mine. I hung up. For the first time in years, I wasn't the scapegoat. I wasn't the outcast. I was the storm. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Within a week, word was spreading through town. Jake had missed another car payment. His card got declined at the bar. Someone spotted a notice taped to the front door. Bright orange, hard to miss. Delinquent taxes. I watched from across the street in my car, the same way I used to watch him get praised for things I had done. Except this time no one was clapping. Neighbors whispered. Heads shook. The golden boy's shine was fading and fast. Dad tried to keep up appearances. He mowed the lawn himself, waved at people like nothing was wrong. But I could see it, the tightness in his face, the way his shoulders hunched like he was carrying something too heavy. Mom called me again. This time her voice cracked. They might foreclose. Do you understand? This is your home too. I laughed bitterly. You made it very clear it isn't my home. Her silence stung. Not because I wanted her sympathy, but because she had none left to give. Meanwhile, Jake started blowing up my phone. At first it was smug texts, you jealous yet? But soon they turned desperate. Can you loan me $500? Just until payday. Come on, you're the smart one. Help me figure this out. Please. I can't lose this place. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I printed copies of his debt records. Every missed payment. Every loan. Every red mark against his name. I slid them into a folder and tucked it into my bag. Because I knew sooner or later, my father would come to me. And when he did, I wanted to be ready. It happened 3 nights later. I was sitting in my motel room, staring at the buzzing neon light outside, when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find him standing there. My father. The man who had shut the door in my face. He looked older. Tired. The kind of tired that seeps into your bones. Can we talk? He asked. For a moment I just stared at him. The man who had told me I wasn't family. The man who handed my childhood home to Jake like I was nothing. I stepped aside. Let him in. But I didn't smile. Because I wasn't his daughter anymore. I was his reckoning. My father sat on the edge of the motel chair like it might collapse under him. He didn't meet my eyes at first. Just rubbed his temples, sighed, looked at the carpet. Finally he said, Your brother's in trouble. I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. No kidding. He flinched at my tone but kept going. The house. The taxes, he wasn't ready for this. I thought. He stopped, searching for words. I thought if I gave him responsibility, he'd finally grow up. I laughed. Loud and sharp. So you handed him the house and cut me out? That was your brilliant plan? His jaw clenched. You walked away from us. You chose school, your own life. Don't you dare, I snapped. I didn't walk away. You pushed me out. Every single time you blamed me for his screw-ups, every time you made me sacrifice so he could skate free, you built this. You created him. He finally looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time I saw doubt in his eyes. I opened my bag and pulled out the folder. Dropped it on the table between us. Papers spilled out. Red notices, debt records, proof of every disaster Jake had buried under charm and excuses. Dad's hand shook as he picked them up. His face drained of color. He's sinking, I said quietly. And he's going to drag you down with him. Silence stretched between us. The motel clock ticked too loud. At last he whispered, "What do you want me to do?" It was the first time in my life my father had asked me for advice. For help. For anything that wasn't blind obedience. I could have gloated. I could have spat in his face and told him to fix his own mess. But instead I leaned forward, steady, calm. "Admit what you did to me," I said. "Say it. You chose him over me. You always have. And now you're paying the price." His throat worked. His lips parted. For a long moment I thought he'd say it. But then he shook his head. "I can't," he whispered. And just like that I knew. Nothing would change. Not really. He wasn't here for me. He was here for the house. For Jake. For the legacy he tried to protect, even if it meant destroying me. I stood, heart pounding. "Then you can get out." He looked stunned. "What?" "You heard me. You wanted me gone from the house. Fine. Now you're gone from my life." For once I was the one closing the door. And I didn't look back. The next morning my phone blew up. Not from Dad this time. From Mom. Her texts came in waves. "What did you say to him?" He came home furious. "This isn't helping, you're tearing us apart." Tearing them apart. I almost laughed. They had torn me apart years ago. Piece by piece. And now they were shocked that the seams were unraveling without me holding them together. By evening Jake called. His voice was raw, panicked. "You talked to Dad? What the hell did you tell him?" I stayed silent. He barreled on. "He's threatening to cut me off. To sell the house. He can't do that, it's in my name, right? Tell me he can't." I let the silence stretch until he started to crack. His breathing grew sharp, uneven. "Please," he whispered finally. "I can't lose this. I'll fix it, I promise. Just help me." Help. The word tasted bitter. "Funny," I said softly. "That's all I ever did. Help. And none of you cared until the house was on the line." He cursed, muttered something about me being heartless, and hung up. But his desperation lingered in the room long after the line went dead. That night my friend in finance sent me one more file. A foreclosure notice, drafted, waiting. Ready to go if Jake missed another tax payment. Which he would. Inevitably. I stared at the PDF until my chest ached. This was it. The leverage I never had before. Proof that the Golden Boy's throne was built on sand, and the tide was already rolling in. I could release it. Show the whole family, the whole town, exactly who Jake really was. I could burn the Carter name to ashes. But I hesitated. Because the question wasn't could I. It was should I. Did I want revenge, or freedom? The answer pulsed in my veins as I closed the laptop. Maybe I wanted both. I didn't sleep that night. The motel ceiling swam above me, and every creak of the pipes felt like a drumbeat. By dawn I knew what I had to do. I printed the foreclosure notice, slid it into the same folder with Jake's debt records, and drove straight to the house. The street was quiet. Too quiet. But inside voices were raised. Mom's shrill panic, Dad's rumbling anger, Jake's frantic whining. The holy trinity of dysfunction. I rang the bell. When the door opened, all three of them froze like I was a ghost. I held up the folder. Family meeting. They let me in. Not because they wanted to, but because they were desperate enough to think I might save them. We sat around the kitchen table. The same one where I'd done homework while Jake threw tantrums for extra dessert. The same one where Mom lectured me for not sharing, for not giving, for never being enough. I spread the papers out between us. Every debt, every notice, every ugly truth. This, I said, tapping the folder, is your golden boy. This is the mess you handed him when you gave him the house. And this, I slid the foreclosure notice across the table, is the future you've built. Mom gasped. Dad went pale. Jake swore under his breath. You've always said I was the problem, I continued. My voice shook, but not from fear, from rage, from years of swallowing words I should have screamed. But look at the truth. He's destroying everything you care about, and you handed him the matches. Dad's fist slammed the table. Enough. You don't come into my house. It's not your house, I cut in. You gave it away. And now it's burning down. Silence. Thick, heavy, choking. Jake's voice cracked. Please just help me cover it. You have money. You've always had money. I stared at him. The boy who had taken everything from me, and still thought I owed him more. No, I said. Calm. Final. Mom's face twisted. Don't be cruel. We're family. I looked at her. Really looked. And I felt something inside me harden, sharp and unbreakable. That word, I said, doesn't mean what you think it does. And for the first time in my life, I pushed the folder back toward them. Not as an offering. As a verdict. You wanted me gone. Consider this my goodbye. I stood. None of them followed me. Not even Jake. I didn't slam the door when I left. I wanted the quiet to stay with them. To echo. To linger. The morning air was cold, sharp enough to sting my lungs, but it felt clean. Cleaner than anything inside that house ever had. I drove back to the motel, checked out, and hit the highway with nothing but my suitcase in the back seat and silence in the car. For the first time in years, that silence didn't feel like punishment. Felt like freedom. The calls started within an hour. Dad first, then Mom, then Jake. I didn't answer. By the second day, the voicemails shifted from anger to pleading. We can work this out. Don't turn your back on us. Think of your brother. But I didn't. Not anymore. Instead, I started looking for an apartment. Somewhere small, somewhere mine. I put down a deposit the same day I got the keys. Standing in that empty space, walls bare, air fresh, I realized something that nearly buckled my knees. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't disowned. I wasn't lost. I was free. 2 weeks later, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in months sent me a message. A screenshot of Jake's truck being repossessed in broad daylight. A neighbor had posted it online with the caption, "Guess the golden boy's luck ran out." I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. I just stared at the photo until my chest went quiet. Because the truth was, revenge wasn't what I wanted. It never had been. All I'd ever wanted was to stop begging for love that was never going to come. That night, I blocked their numbers. All of them. No explanation. No dramatic finale. Just silence. And when I lay down in my new bed in my own place, I didn't dream of locks or doors or houses anymore. I dreamed of wide open roads. Because I finally understood. Sometimes you don't reclaim the house you grew up in. You build your own. What do you think about a father locking his own daughter out of the house, and then giving everything to the golden child who destroys it? Subscribe for more and share your thoughts in the comments.